You are listening to the Red Leaf Retrocast, your best location to learn, remember, and relive the past to the present. I hope you enjoyed today's retro gaming episode. I hope you go down memory lane with us, relive some nostalgia, or at the very least, enjoy listening to a bunch of guys talk about old video games. And now, on to the show. And it's episode 41 of the Red Leaf Retrocast. I am your host, JD, joined by my amazing co-host today, Colin. How you doing?
Konnichiwa, minasan. Watashi wa Colin desu. Kore wa Red Leaf Retrocast. Yes, and I should probably stop. That's about all the Japanese I can muster right now.
I mean, I could speak German if that's...
Yeah.
It could be something we speak between Japanese and German. No, this is the Red Leaf Retrocast. We speak English on this one. Coming from me, that's rich. So today was your theme pick, Colin.
Yes, time travel games.
Yes. Games that involve some sort of time travel, whether it's in your dreams or in your wildest imaginations, or you just find a nice little time machine in an attic for no reason at all. Who knows? So that's our theme. We got 6 games we chose. Kevin couldn't be here today, unfortunately. He was busy. And the reason why we're actually not recording this on the weekend for a number of reasons. Mostly because I went to New York City to a bunch of wrestling things for a bunch of days.
Nice,
so that's what happened
nice.
there. And you just got back from Japan, so we'll be talking a little bit about that.
Hell yeah.
We got some topics here today. Before we get into the theme, some BioWare stuff that's in the news. Collecting for those ancient 80s consoles. Since we got a lot of questions about that after our Intellivision episode, so that was nice.
Oh, yeah.
And then a couple interesting topics that's just come up. I have a fun one and then a discussion one, so stay tuned for those. Now,
Cool.
Colin, I watched a lot of wrestling. I went to a lot of wrestling.
Yes.
Yeah. Wednesday night, instead of bowling, I went to the premiere of the local wrestling promotion. They're starting a weekly TV show, and it was a lot of fun. Some surprises, big names. They really want this thing to take off.
Nice.
Yeah, it was good. Got to meet some wrestlers afterwards. Like I always do, had a couple beers. It was nice. And the very next day, I left for New York City. Met my dad.
Nice. Nice.
And we went to 3 shows. We went to a WXW show, German one. Stardom, which is the Japanese women's promotion. And then on Saturday night was the big one at Madison Square Garden. That was called the G1 Supercard.
Cool.
A joint wrestling show between Ring of Honor and New Japan Pro Wrestling. So, that one was really long. It was so long, in fact, it was I think 6 hours by the end of it.
Oh, man.
And, super long. It was so long that I, at some point, had a headache, and then I got over the headache. It was just weird. It was bizarre. But the headache didn't take away from my enjoyment. I was just very uncomfortable and kind of in pain, but I was just so into the matches that were going on, I just didn't care.
Yeah. Nice.
Got real drunk with my dad on Friday night.
Naturally.
Like, awfully drunk. Like, wow drunk. Yeah. I got this wild drink, Colin, at this one. So our routine was we had we do a wrestling show at like 4:00, and then we go have a nice dinner afterwards.
Uh-huh.
As opposed to what a lot of wrestling fans will do, they'll they'll go to like 2-3 shows in a row and just have food in between, and then maybe get trashed later or at the event, right? We just had a nice dinner. We'd have a couple drinks, and then that would be it. So that we'd be refreshed. But Friday night we went overboard. We went to a restaurant and I started the night. Well, I already had a couple Heinekens at the previous show, but we started the night. No, I was drinking that afternoon, in fact, already. So it went. Yeah, that explains a lot now in hindsight. I had a drink called a Detroit Red. And it was really delicious and odd. Oddly delicious, one might say. It involved this fruity kind of pomegranate front taste. And then you'd get, in the back of your glands, you would get the alcohol, right? And then when you swallowed and you exhaled, you got the... Well... So when you swallowed, you got another flavor that I can't remember anymore. But then when you exhaled, like a smoky aftertaste would come out.
Oh, yeah?
So you were hit with like 4 flavors all at once. And plus it smelled differently too.
That's crazy.
So my senses were just like, what is going on here? It was really wild. I looked at the waiter and I'm like, I just pointed at it. I'm just going, this. And he goes, that is what we call good shit. Okay.
Nice.
Yeah, so look up the formula, because that's what it was. It was a formula. It had like 13 ingredients in it or something wild.
Oh, wow.
On how to make this drink. It's pretty crazy. And then we went to a nice bar we passed on the way we wanted to go to. And we got fucking hammered off scotch. So
Nice.
I did wake up with a hangover, but then I quickly got over the hangover with some delicious New York pizza.
New York what, sorry?
New York pizza.
Ah, nice.
Yeah. I mean, you go to New York, you got to get pizza, right?
Naturally.
At some point. And hangover went away, but then I guess I don't know what I did to my neck, but that's what's... I've had like neck pain the past couple of days since Saturday, and it's causing me weird headaches. It's really wild. But so that's the Debbie Downer moment. But wrestling was super fun. Contemplating going to a couple more shows in May, so I'm not sure what I'm doing in April. What else I'm doing in April, since I already went to all these shows. Now, you went to Japan, Colin. I bet you're dying to talk about that. But first, this is the last opportunity to enter our ongoing contest for a High Dive gift card. If you go to the Twitter at BowlingJD or use the hashtag RedleafRetrocast, you can find the link to click on to enter the contest. All you have to do is click that, and there's 7-8 different ways you can enter to win this High Dive gift card. So there you go. Now, Colin.
Yes.
The platform is yours. You are free to speak.
Japan! Alright. Yeah. Japan was amazing. It was like 2 full weeks just experiencing everything I possibly can. I went with a tour group. They're called Packset Tours. I got a flyer for them in one of my Right Stuff anime orders from the holiday sales. So that's how I knew about them. And I knew about Right Stuff thanks to you, JD, so you're indirectly responsible for me going.
Hey, how about that? I will take all the credit.
But yeah, we spent the first half in Tokyo. Went to all the famous districts. Went to Akihabara, naturally. Got a whole bunch of shit from there. Went to the Shibuya district, which is where the game The World Ends With You takes place, so I was naturally quite excited for that. The scramble is just as crazy as anybody who knows about it would imagine. For those who don't know, that's the most famous crosswalk in Tokyo, where basically as soon as the walk signals are green, anything goes. Everybody just crosses. It's just a big madhouse of pedestrians.
Yeah, New York City is a bit like that as well.
Ah, yeah. And we also visited Harajuku and Ikebukuro. No sign of Salty Surlison, sadly.
Anime references for the audience in case they weren't familiar.
Yeah. We did a maid cafe in Tokyo, and never again.
And why is that?
Too much cutesy all in one place.
They hooked you? It's a dangerous location for you?
Pretty much. It's just... Even the desserts you get are done up to look incredibly cutesy. Like, they got stuff looking like cats. Others like bear face.
There's a few maid cafes in Toronto that I went to. They're interesting.
I can imagine.
There was a good one that sells a lot of like shortcake and cheesecake and stuff.
Ah, yeah.
I would sometimes go there just to order the cheesecake and leave, because you can get it to go.
Yeah.
Yeah, like a bakery almost, but just cheesecake.
Yeah. Although at one point it got extra interesting because our group had paid for like a live performance to happen as well, and then it just all of the maids come out and it suddenly turns into like a rave. They got like the glow sticks, they're dancing really fast to the music. It's like, wow. Did not expect that. Of course, some of the people in my group theorized it was because a lot of the girls working as the waitresses at those places are aspiring idols, so that's their practice.
Yeah, that's an industry to probably stay away from all the articles I've read. But anyways,
yeah.
What else did you do? What did you do in Akihabara?
Shopped mostly.
Mm-hmm.
Just got a bunch
any arcades, like big Sega arcade or anything? Did you go there?
Yep, the Sega arcade, the Taito arcade. They're just big multi-story arcades. It's just, I mean, there's claw machines and galore. There's all these like big rhythm game machines. And, the top floors are generally where all the pachinko and slot machines are.
Yeah. Did you gamble inside a pachinko parlor?
I tried it at one point. I couldn't really figure out how the thing really worked. I mean, you just put in 100 yen, and then you gotta like turn this crank. It's like the more you turn it, the more force the balls will be launched upward.
Yeah, just think of it like a pinball machine.
Yeah, except in this case, you don't really have much control besides just turning the knob. You're not really flicking anything. You're just kind of adjusting a knob. That's really all there is to it.
Yeah.
But all the different themes they had for all these different machines, it was wild. I mean, you had like Senran Kagura, you had Girls und Panzer, you had Fate Stay Night. It was just,
oh boy.
It was nuts.
Very anime censored. Centered. Jesus.
Yeah. I didn't end up buying too much merch since I had a bit of a limited budget, but I did get a few games. I got Os Tatakai Oendan 1 and 2, which are basically the predecessor games to Elite Beat Agents, which I absolutely love.
Oh.
Yeah. I also got, what was it?
Will you be able to play them?
Yeah. I mean, they're pretty simple to navigate. I mean, I can probably read up a menu translation online, but once you actually get the various stages going, it's very simple. It's exactly the same as how Elite Beat Agents goes.
Okay. I got you. I feel you.
And there's another game I got, but I can't quite remember what it is. Oh yeah, I got a Japanese copy of The World Ends With You, just cause.
Just cause.
Of course, the Japanese title for it is It's a Wonderful World. But
Interesting, because that's the same title as an Animal Crossing game on the GameCube. No,
Oh,
I'm
yeah?
sorry, not Animal Crossing. Harvest Moon.
Heh, neat.
Yeah, same title.
Yeah, go figure.
I bet that's why it's a different title outside of Japan.
That would make sense.
I betcha.
Although personally, I like The World Ends With You a little better because it has a bit of a darker edge to it that matches better with the game.
I agree. I would agree with that statement. And you got some figures, right? Made me totally jealous.
Yeah. Yep,
Perhaps
got
I shall come to Toronto and murder you?
it. Just try it, bucko. I'll be waiting. Yeah, I got 4 One Piece figures and 1 Full Metal Alchemist figure.
Did you go to a resale shop to get them?
Yeah, just found used ones.
Yeah, it's crazy how it's just, you can get them so cheap and they're like brand new.
Yeah, pretty much. They're technically used, but I don't see any like wear on them, so it's pretty wild. Oh, I also Tokyo Tower was doing a One Piece theme park type thing. And I went. And it was awesome.
You're making me jealous over here. So jealous.
Yeah.
Here I am, just like, I went to a sports thing at Madison Square Garden for the first time. But, you know, you can brag about all your fun things you did in Japan. You know, I don't care. Don't care. It's not like I had that plan all the years ago, and then all of a sudden I had to cancel that plan because I got laid off and got kicked out of the country. You know, no big deal. Fine.
I feel for you. That's too bad. But
you remember I had that plan that trip planned for like 2 years, and then
yeah, you were saying
scrapped in a single moment. I was like, oh, not there.
Yeah, you were gonna go with your dad. You said.
Yeah. Instead we planned another trip, and that turned out to be this New York City trip. So funny how it was the same time you went to Japan. It's almost like it was fate. I'm jealous. It's okay.
Yeah, the One Piece thing was fun. I made friends with a guy from Israel who was there.
Made friends with someone, not me? Okay, so he's from Israel. You made friends. Okay.
Yeah.
Is he, like, live in Israel? Live in Canada? What's the deal?
Yeah. He lives in Israel. But he speaks pretty good English.
Okay. You gonna call him back?
I had his email. He asked me to send me whatever photos I managed to get because his phone's camera was all messed up. Broken,
I hate it when I've been on a few trips myself where something like that happened, and I was just so bummed out because I don't have any pictures of those trips, and and I usually went on those things by myself too.
Yeah, the whole theme park thing had a pretty cool setup. There was like these different rooms and attractions that were based on the different characters. Like there was like a little shooting gallery based on Usopp where you had the slingshots and you were firing cannonballs at Marines.
Oh,
and then
cool.
Once you shot down all the Marines, the backdrop would lower down. You had to try and shoot the world government flag, just like the NES lobby arc.
Yes. I like that scene.
And then there was a Brook themed one where it's basically like a haunted house, and then ends with you dropping a ball of salt into a zombie's mouth.
Oh, yep. It's very good, very good.
And there was a Zorro themed one where you got like a electronic sword, and you're up. It's like motion sensor sword. You know what I mean? Just like in big screen, you had like all these cannonballs firing at you. You swing the sword.
Oh, okay. So it wasn't a maze where you're constantly going in the wrong direction?
Nope. Though there was like
because he gets lost easily. Okay.
There was like a little sightseeing attraction. You're going through like the entire history of the show. Just like starts with Shanks giving Luffy the hat as a kid, and then going on to different events of the story.
I imagine that'd be cool. I mean, shit, they got fucking 20 years of the show now at this point.
Yeah, really.
Oh boy.
And there was even a live performance that we went to. Just all these actors dressed up as the characters performing live on stage, and it was really cool.
It's really cool. I wish I could have seen something like that.
Apparently, Eiichiro Oda himself, the author, actually had a hand in writing up that show.
He would do something like that. Dude's a freak.
Yeah.
He's
an idea machine.
My God.
It had an original character that he came up with. So it was really cool.
Dude's radical. All right. Well, we're running a little bit long here.
Just to close out, I also went to Kyoto and Osaka, and to anyone who goes out in that direction, go to Kobe and get a Kobe beef steak. Frickin' amazing. Yeah, it was an experience eating. I had a Food Wars moment.
Did your clothes explode?
Not quite that far, but I did involuntarily close my eyes a couple of times to savor the taste. Goes great.
The good news
Malaysian
is you can get Kobe beef here as well. It's just expensive.
Yeah, it's expensive over there too, but it's so worth it.
Alrighty. Well, with that, I think it's time we move on to our topics. Super fun time.
All right.
Hey dude, you into anime, manga, and all that radical stuff? Then you should totally check out the Anime Radicals Network at www.animeradicals.com. If you want discussions, debates, reviews, and all in between, we also got timely reviews, revolutions, mecha, and much more. Find it on iTunes, Google Podcasts, and all podcast catchers. The Anime Radicals Network. The revolution will be simulcast.
I could not resist playing the Super Mario Bros. Death theme music.
Yeah, fits with this. Fits with what we're about to talk about.
Yeah, so we're starting... I mean, this is the big news going around, is the game Anthem, which we've spoken on Red Leaf Retrocast, Modern Gaming Edition, quite a bit. I think we even had a small topic before on here. How much the game is just very disappointing, not a good game by any means, and recent news came out. BioWare released a statement kind of explaining why the game turned out so shit.
It wasn't really BioWare releasing a statement as much as a guy on Kotaku doing some hard investigative journalism with
You're right. Probably should have written that part down instead of going off memory.
But yeah, Jason Schreier did that whole piece on Kotaku, and he has a reputation for doing some really good investigative journalism, so seems like his stuff is legit. And of course, BioWare themselves released their statement that they obviously didn't read the article themselves, so their statement was way off base.
And what was BioWare's statement exactly?
Yeah, they're just like... The one bit I remember was that they're always striving for the best work environment. Man, we don't condone naming certain employees to make them targets of criticism, even though that wasn't the purpose of it at all.
Right.
That was for clarification. And these people willingly spoke out about it. How it was like there was 5 years of pre-production on this game, and then when EA started getting impatient, they suddenly only had 1 year to actually make the thing. So it was like 1 full year of crunch time, and the employees were just totally suffering because of it. It's like some people reported they had to go to like an empty room, close the door, and just cry because it was stressing them out that much. And then other employees had doctor mandated stress leave because they, for like 1 or 3 months, just because it was so intensive. And then it was insane. They worked their employees just to the bone.
Yeah, so some of the most interesting stuff that I found was that 5 years of pre-production alone, which is just nonsensical. I found the kind of insecurity of not having words like Destiny and Division be taboo.
Oh yeah.
Yet because Diablo 3 was, made by the same people, that they could make that as the reference point. So to not be allowed to talk about other games you're basing this game off of and not improve upon it, they were bound to repeat the same mistakes as the others, and worse, in fact.
Yeah, it was so stupid.
Let's see, what else did I write down here? Let's see, leadership not discussing, doing things with best. We should be looking at how they're doing things. As an example, the developer brought up the unique feeling of Destiny's large variety of guns, something that Anthem is lacking, because it is built by a bunch of people who had mostly made RPGs. We really didn't have the design skill to be able to do that, they said. There just wasn't the knowledge base to be able to develop that kind of diversity. So because a lot of the developers were Diablo 3 and kind of the Mass Effect people, most of the major Mass Effect people had left during the pre-development. So they weren't involved in the game anymore. But because they were experienced in a different kind of genre, trying to get them to make a looter shooter, they just didn't have the knowledge and experience to make a game like that from scratch without a reference point. And they weren't allowed to use the reference point. They were only allowed to use reference point of their own games, which wasn't relative to the game they were making.
Yeah, and plus for the longest time, even BioWare themselves didn't even know what kind of game they were trying to make. First there was flying, and then they're like, no, take out the flying. And then they're like, no, put the flying back in, and then it was just all over the place.
Yeah, really, really weird things. They didn't really know what to put into the game for a long time. A lot of it was guesswork. Because so many of the major players left during the pre-production, EA brought in their own guys, and that kind of led to, the crazy work environment that we now see or hear about. And, it just created a culture of failure. And the game was a big failure. It is a big failure.
Yeah, absolutely.
They've already lost, I think I read somewhere, about 65% of their player base within the first 2 weeks, and then another 30% in congruent weeks. So no one's playing the game anymore. And for this is why the Modern Game Podcast, when we talk about games with live services, if your game doesn't meet a live service model to get you to continue playing the game, then your objective to play the game has failed.
Yeah, really.
And so never you mind that Anthem was a failure of a game in the first place. It's also failing at its goal, which is to maintain a player base over a period of time for longevity. They can't even do that. And we're seeing the same effect with Battlefield 5, how they failed to release content and make a variety of content to keep the players. And that's objectively a much better game, but it still fails in a lot of areas. So, yeah, that was a very interesting article to read over via Kotaku and just BioWare And EA itself, just wow, crazy.
Yeah. There's shitting the bed, and then there's this.
Yeah, it's no wonder that EA is voted, one of the worst companies to work for. Their games, time and time again, disappoint, meet below expectations by their own words.
Yeah, but I think in this case, it was less EA's fault and more BioWare's fault, just like mismanaging the whole thing, just like with the whole 5 years in pre-production thing. That really stood out to me.
Yeah, so it's not totally EA's fault this time, but they did bring in the executives for BioWare. Because at the end, whose head do you chop off at the top? That's kind of the motto I go after. So, in happy news, I found a sweet article via Polygon where Okay, so I'm a big fan of the Little Big Planet series.
Yeah.
And I played this level, and it's like the most ridiculous thing in the world. Little Big Planet 3. Someone made a level where you can play Mario Maker. So and I put a link in the agenda for you, Colin, because it's really funny. You're essentially making a game within a game to play the game. It's really quite ridiculous. So if you have Little Big Planet 3, or you just want to look up how this went down, it's a simple Google search. I recommend it. It really put a smile on my face, and I went and played it, and it's goofy. Someone takes the time and do something like that. So our last episode was over the Intellivision, and we got a lot of good response from it, surprisingly enough. And I dusted off an old Atari, wood graining, Colin.
Nice
little cheap thing. Went to my local retro video game stores here in the island of Rhodes. And got a bunch of Atari games and television games. I was just so inspired. I got that itch. Man, what a fun era to collect for, I must say.
Yeah?
'Cause it's a little it's on the dangerous side to collect for. And what I mean by that is there's a lot of knockoff cartridges out there.
Oh yeah.
Made by inferior cartridges where the game kind of doesn't work anymore. The Parker Brothers cartridges come to mind.
Oh yeah.
Non-licensed releases. Think of I want to say Tengen on the NES. A lot of those games where they're non-licensed games for the console, right?
Yeah.
So that's something you got to look for in the early 80s consoles, Atari, Coleco, Intellivision. So that was something I had to look out for, and I really had to research what the authentic cartridges look like, what the labels look like, those kind of things. If you are that kind of person, you want to collect for the authentic cartridges.
Uh-huh.
You don't want something with an old cartridge and someone put just a label maker over it and there you go, right?
Yeah.
Because then it could be anything.
Yeah.
There's the little kind of stick you got to look out for.
Yeah. I know what you mean.
Yeah. So it's always important to, when you get a cartridge, to check that it's actually the game on that cartridge. That's very important. So that's why I was kind of looking at labels and really double checking things. Now, when the big bonus to it all is most of the cartridges in games aren't that expensive because people just don't collect for that era. Not really, right?
Yeah.
Because they're very easy to emulate. They've been re-released in plug-and-play consoles, very affordable, compilation discs across the eras. But, to me, Colin, there's nothing better than grabbing that old school controller, plugging it, slapping the cartridge in. Nothing will ever beat that feeling.
Yeah. It's just...
And hearing the authentic sound coming from, those TVs.
Yeah. I remember Angry Video Game Nerd saying something to that effect when he was doing his Atari 5200 episode, talking about how the 2600 defines the word classic.
Yeah. And I'm just looking to my left. I've been playing Atari for like the last week. Or at least the last week and a half. It's been therapeutic to say the least, because I've been playing Devil May Cry 5 and Sekiro, and oh boy, challenges of rage and patience. But then I throw on. I'll tell you a funny story. I got Space Invaders for the Atari 2600. Okay, and been playing Sekiro. We'll get to difficulty in video games. That's our next topic. Is rage in Sekiro from just dying over and over again to certain bosses. And then I'm like, fuck this. I'm going to play some goddamn Atari. Throw in Space Invaders, slap it, and I die in like literally a second. I just go, pew, poof, I'm like, no, this is worse. So it's like new school hard versus the old school hard. Yeah.
That's funny.
So,
yeah, I've been playing Sekiro too, and it is pretty challenging.
Yeah, so we'll definitely get there in a second. But would you have any questions for how to, like, what questions of collecting for these consoles? Do you have any questions for me, Colin?
How exactly would you be able to tell the genuines from the knockoffs?
So, really, I've been using the labels and then the size of the cartridges.
Oh yeah.
So yeah. So the Atari are like giant rectangles, and most of their games have nice little artwork labels, right?
Uh-huh.
And they'll say for use with the Atari system or Sears. A lot of them say or Sears on them, right?
Uh-huh.
The Intellivision, that's a little bit more tricky because they don't have that artwork on.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. What they are these angled cartridges, and a lot of their labels look like something you could, just get off a label maker.
Oh yeah, yeah.
So, what the Intellivision has is colored labels with certain fonts for games. So that's something to definitely double check for. And then Coleco are cartridges that look like the Atari ones, but they're a bit smaller.
Yeah.
The difference is they have like ridges on their upper corners.
Oh yeah.
So that's the thing to look out for them and Coleco. And it also, in every cartridge for ColecoVision that I've come across and researched, it says for the ColecoVision console.
Ah.
Like in bright big letters on the front. Like ColecoVision. Don't mix that up with games for the Atari that Coleco made, because those will still say for the Atari system, but made by Coleco.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that's the tricky part there.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Cool.
So, you can go to a lot of these retro stores, and they usually don't sell these games for more than $5. You could probably it'd be a great idea to ask like how long those games have been there. And you go, I could probably take a bunch of off your hands. Maybe a 2-for-1 deal or half off deal of every game. And sure enough, both stores were more than happy to oblige with that.
Cool.
So now I have like 16 games for both the Intellivision and Atari 2600 each.
Yeah, you were saying it got all that under $50.
Yeah, I was like, look at all this shit I got. And it was like barely $50. This is awesome.
Nice.
Yeah, super fun, easy. One thing to look out for if you're buying a console like online are the modded ones.
Oh, yeah.
Because I could be mistaken on this little tidbit here, but the cords are connected in the back. They're not removable like a lot of modern consoles, right? Where you can just replace the cord. So what a lot of people have done is they've modded these to, say, work with an AVI cable, the red, blue, yellow, or red, white, yellow, or even plug in HDMI-wise, and sometimes that doesn't work out too well because then all your picture is going to be permanently distorted when you're throwing it into those TVs.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
So that's something to definitely look out for if you're looking for a modded console. I would look for pictures of them proving, like, this is what games look like when you plug it in kind of deal.
Oh, yeah.
Or ask for proof. Yeah.
Yeah, all this talk about the Coleco and Intellivision and Atari has me wondering what Tommy Tallarico's plans for the Intellivision brand are.
Yeah, ever since our Intellivision episode, it really made me even more interested in the Intellivision.
I think it's called the Amico.
The Amico, yeah, which is now that I think about it, it sounds like it's a play on the Coleco name.
Yeah, sounds like it.
Yeah.
Because I looked at the concert schedule for Video Games Live this year, and it seems to be a lot shorter than last year. So I think he's spending most of his time trying to wrangle everything together about the Amico.
Yeah, I'm very curious to see how that console is going to turn out. Not unlike the Atari VCS.
Oh,
VGS,
yeah.
whatever they're calling it. That thing's been delayed. Surprise, surprise.
Naturally.
Yeah.
But I feel like the Amico is a more hopeful thing because Tommy Tallarico is genuinely passionate about what he does. So I have faith in him.
Faith away. Yeah, so I think that's all I got to say about collecting for those ancient 80s consoles. They're super fun. Definition of classics.
Oh, yeah.
They just feel right and really put you in a different... when I hook up my, GameCube or PS2 or even the PlayStation, even the NES... Yeah, there's some nostalgia there for sure, but there's just something about going even further back to that just beginning era, you might say. Yeah. It's just a different experience.
Oh yeah.
You feel like you're playing an arcade all the time.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Reminds me of the ending of Ready Player One. There was a heavy Atari 2600 presence there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I don't know if you've seen that.
No, I haven't seen it at all.
It's worth a watch.
Maybe I should.
I mean, you get to see a freaking Gundam in it.
Ugh. So, speaking of difficulty in games, you got Sekiro, I got Sekiro, I've been playing Sekiro. From Software has been getting a lot of flack. People are pissed off. They're mad, Colin. Because the game is too damn hard. Why isn't there an easy mode? Well, let's talk about difficulty in video games and Sekiro as the grand example, since that's hot news item.
I don't know why all these people are getting mad now. I mean, From Software is known for this stuff. I mean, are people just losing patience with it, or are all these people talking about it now just new to the scene?
I think it's just a new generation of gamers, really, and not used to the single player experiences anymore. I think that has a lot to do with it.
Possibly.
Games with autosave features and death not being this harsh reality of a thing in a game.
Yeah.
I mentioned how Sekiro and From Software is the new school hard compared to the old school hard.
Mm-hmm.
When you die in a game, there should be consequences, right?
Absolutely.
And the consequences in Sekiro are very fair.
Yeah, I'd say so. I mean,
Now, the gameplay itself can be very unfair, and that's definitely been a From Software issue for a number of games.
Yeah.
And I think it's more apparent in Sekiro. The main thing people are saying is there should be an easy mode. And I'm thinking, well, what would they change for it to be an easy mode? Do you just get more health?
Yeah, maybe. Or take
But
less
that would
damage.
then change the landscape of the game itself.
Yeah, no, that's true.
Because your health is tied into items you find, or items you earn facing these bosses.
Yeah, I mean, the director of the game even came out and said that the difficulty is part of Sekiro's artistic integrity or artistic vision. And
I mean, I've honestly been playing it more like a Tenchu game. Remember when we covered Tenchu on the podcast?
Yeah, it's supposed to be like stealth.
Yeah. So I use stealth 90% of the time in the game. Like cheesing enemies, luring them, throwing ceramic pots at their face, running around, de-aggroing them, cutting them from behind. That's how I play. What gets ridiculous is a lot of these boss attacks, and just enemy attacks in general, are just too damn punishing.
Yeah.
And not readable. There's a lot of attacks from enemies that just... In Dark Souls and Bloodborne, there's a lot of times where you find yourself avoiding a certain attack, and the boss telegraphs it very well, right?
Yeah.
And there's a kind of the infinite roll you can do. Now, am I good with that is a different story. In Sekiro, it relies on this block system, but there's the enemies just... The difference between you and the enemies just doesn't seem right. The balance just isn't there, as it has in past games. I think that's what people are really complaining about, rather than the difficulty.
Yeah, maybe. I mean,
I think that's what they're meaning to say.
It can be pretty tough to know when to parry effectively.
Well, you don't need to be good at the parrying. There are items you can use. There's Ash and whatnot. So there are ways around it and playing a different way. Now, if you're good with the parry system, I could totally see this game being kind of boring, because all you do is parry, parry, parry every single time. While if you're not good at that, that requires you to play many different ways for any type of boss. It's interesting. It's an interesting way to look at it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, personally, I like the way Sekiro does things, because it seems like there's less emphasis on buffing up your stats and more on learning the flow and the technique. Is like what you upgrade in the game, it's more like you're learning new skills and getting new gadgets rather than like increasing your strength or your resistance or what have you.
Yeah, you have to work on your ability to use the gadgets effectively.
Yeah, and plus the combat here seems more fast-paced.
It's very fast-paced.
So I actually like that about the game, and honestly, really the best part of the game for me is when you just grapple up onto a high roof, see a guy down below, and then just do a diving stab onto them. It's the best feeling in the world.
The feelings the game gives you for the satisfaction of a kill is very well done.
Yeah. And lots and lots of blood.
I'm probably gonna speak for Kevin on this one, because he would. I feel like he would say, if you don't make your game beatable to a larger audience, then you failed in game design. And I can't agree with that statement, because what would you say then about Super Metroid or a lot of the games we played on the cast, where
Like Ninja
if you don't
Gaiden?
have the excuse me,
Ninja Gaiden?
Ninja Gaiden, we bring up that there should be a continue system or a password system, so when you shut off the game, you don't start over all the time, right?
Oh, yeah, that's true.
The objective of a one credit clear or a one play clear, those are different than your inability to beat a game, right?
Yeah.
Because more often than not, your inability to beat the game is just frustration and impatience. And that works just as well today in a game like Sekiro than something like Contra or Mega Man, the Mega Man games. It's like, I could beat this game, but I don't have the time and energy to go through the level again. It's more of a, I don't want to do this rather than I can't do it.
Yeah, that's true.
Now Ninja Gaiden 3 and let's use Ninja Gaiden 3 as an example, where you have 3 lives and then the whole game's over. That's a different story.
Oh yeah, that just seems unfair.
So I would attribute some Sekiro bosses and moves to kind of that, in that realm of you have 3 lives or it's game over kind of deal. Because if you get stuck on a boss in Sekiro and you're just not good enough to beat him, no matter using the items or whatnot, you are stuck. Right?
Oh yeah. Yeah, if you've got like limited types of items.
And the whole get good argument, I just don't think applies to everything,
Yeah, that's true. Because, yes, here in Sekiro, I don't know if there's a way to go back and farm for coins or just items in general.
Yeah, that's I think its biggest flaw. And I spoke about something like that on the Modern Cast. So I'm on record with saying difficulty in games, if you increase the difficulty, something in the game itself has to change. And there's a very good example of that, of a game we played on the podcast, which we'll probably talk about first. So I think I've said my piece. What about you?
I've only played like maybe 1 or 2 hours of Sekiro thus far, and I'm really enjoying it. I mean, I had a couple of frustrating moments with tougher enemies, but I can see her point about just the not much of a way to go back and increase your level, as opposed to the way Dark Souls or Bloodborne did it.
Right.
But yeah, I guess I'll see in time.
You'll see exactly what you mean. You and I are on a journey.
Yeah. Yes,
Sekiro.
we are.
Okay. Well, I think it's only fitting I play the Chrono Cross drop.
Absolutely.
It's strange how video games make you think you're right back in middle school again. No, it's good. Yeah, there was a lot of really good attention to detail, for especially considering it was on the N64, which was known for not having a lot of that because everything was freaking rectangles and squares everywhere.
Triangles.
Giant polygons.
Yeah.
No, yeah, triangles fucking. The N64, the best system for triangles fucking.
Oh boy.
The only thing it was lacking was definitely the photosynthesis in our world.
Ah.
Yeah.
It definitely.
You know what had photosynthesis, Kevin? The 3DO.
No, it didn't, because then it would be good.
It did.
No, it didn't.
Fucking D-pad.
You're a D-pad.
Oh, nice one. All right.
All right.
I have no comeback for that.
Yeah. So suck it.
Perhaps we here at the Red Leaf Retrocast will never grow up after all, and that's okay. Please consider leaving us an iTunes or Stitcher review to help us out. This is the Red Leaf Retrocast, found on all your favorite podcasting outlets. And now, on to the show again. right, Colin, why did you pick time travel as a theme?
You're gonna be disappointed. I didn't really have a rhyme or reason for it. I was just trying to think up topics, and then I saw I had Time Splitters 2 sitting on my shelf, and from there I realized we hadn't done a time travel theme, so I went with that.
That's a good enough reason to me. Got to play some interesting games for this cast, that's for sure. And some shitty ones, I might add.
Of course, on top of that, I tend to be very wary of a lot of time travel stories, because way too often they tend to be really contrived, and plot holes very easily pop up. But I make exceptions for stuff like Back to the Future or Steins Gate, just because those put a lot of effort into their stories, or just have really entertaining characters. But way too often it's used as a Deus Ex Machina or convenient plot point. Looking at you, Kingdom Hearts.
Yeah, what do they call that? The bootstrap theory or something? Things just happen because they were always meant to happen. Forget about it, or rhyme or reason to it all. You're just always in a... Or I might be mixing up my theories here, but whatever. They get messed up in the story, and you're just poking holes in it all, rather than something like H.G. Wells' The Time Machine, where he creates a machine, and you're just on the journey of him going through time. Not worrying about all the intricacies of, why everything works. It just kind of brings up questions of if I, the butterfly effect, if I step on something here in this time, it will change the future.
Yeah.
It kind of pops up the questions, but you're on the journey mostly, and you can definitely tell that some of these games was about the journey of traveling through time, rather than trying to get this wacky story involved and putting it all together,
Yeah, I know what you mean.
Yeah. So what was our first game? You want to do your picks first, or you want to go through Kevin's picks first?
I don't know, maybe... Yeah, let's do mine first, because I've got a lot more to say about them.
All right, we'll just go through the order then. That's on the agenda.
All right. First up is, as I mentioned before, Time Splitters 2 on Xbox, PS2, and GameCube. It was developed by Free Radical Design and published by Eidos Interactive of Deus Ex and Tomb Raider fame.
Yep.
It was released in October 2002 on all three platforms, although the EU GameCube version came out in November of 2002.
Yeah, it's probably safe to say that all the European versions come out later.
Yeah.
It's just the way it always was.
Yeah.
And is. Well, not so much this generation.
Yeah.
Definitely back then.
Absolutely. And the fun fact, Free Radical Design was a dev company composed mainly of ex-Rareware employees. Much like
I didn't know that.
Much like how Studio Trigger is made up of ex-Gynax employees, for all you fellow weebs out there. So it would explain the resemblance to games like GoldenEye and Perfect Dark.
Oh, that makes so much sense now in the layouts. Okay.
Mm-hmm. And the studio lasted from 1999 to 2009, when it was bought out by Crytek and rebranded as Crytek UK. And you mentioned they made Crysis 2 and 3.
Yeah, and that's kind of it.
And the studio went under in 2014, and the majority of staff transferred to Dambuster Studios.
There you go.
The two biggest reasons for them going bankrupt and bought out by Crytek were A, they were working on Star Wars Battlefront 3 but then it got canceled in 2008 at around 99% completion.
Jesus.
Yeah. And B, they developed Haze, which was a notorious commercial flop.
Yeah, I remember that game. That was a real shame.
Yeah.
Nothing inherently wrong with the game at all, just no one bought it. Simple as that.
Pretty much.
Bummer.
Now, as for Time Splitters 2, I picked this one because I played it as a kid on a recommendation from a friend. And me and my brother had a great old time with it since it was a co-op game. And I never owned it. Once again, it was a title I never owned, but rented at least a couple of times from Blockbuster. To go off on a bit of a tangent, did you know there's one remaining Blockbuster video store, period? It's in Bend, Oregon. I'm tempted to travel there just to get some pictures and selfies before it inevitably bites the dust.
I thought there was one in Alaska, or am I thinking of like a Hollywood Video or something?
Yeah, I'm not sure. But I just remember seeing an article about the Oregon store. Anywho, I really like this game. I mean, it's definitely showing its age as a first-person shooter, but it's had a lot of fun with it. You get to go to all these different kinds of cool time periods. First, there's like Siberia in 1990, where you got to deal with like the zombie infestation in a military base, and then there's go to 1920s Chicago, where you fight a whole syndicate of gangsters with Tommy guns and such. Then you go into the distant future and fight off an alien invasion, and then back to Notre Dame in like the 1800s, and then you deal with like gargoyles and sorcerers.
Of course, why wouldn't you?
And of course.
So it's a, as you mentioned, it's a first-person shooter game. It goes across 10 levels. So that might seem short, and it is.
Yeah.
Each level's in a different time period.
Yeah.
So I mentioned difficulty in games. This one had a really cool feature, and I was kind of messing around with it to see what would be different. So I played the first few levels a number of times on all 3 difficulty levels. It was really cool. And what it comes down to is your objectives of the stage change.
Oh yeah. Yeah, they did that in Perfect Dark too.
Yeah. So that was very interesting. Yeah, I don't think we mentioned that on the cast when we covered Perfect Dark, now that I think about it. Anyways, so that was really cool, and so your objectives are either tied to stealth, or killing people, or following somebody and not being spotted, getting an item, planting a bomb, it could be anything. And how the level gets laid out, and what enemies are where, or how powerful the enemies are, all change with the difficulty level, rather than just, this enemy has more health now and you have less, that most games do along those lines.
Yeah.
That's why when someone goes, I'm just going to play the game on easy level, it's like, well, why wouldn't you?
Yeah.
Right? You're like, oh, but I want a challenge. Well, if the challenge is just the enemy is a bullet sponge, then your challenge is just kind of uninteresting. At least that's my perspective. So as soon as I found this feature out in Time Splitter 2, I immediately was hit with more replay value, right?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Game is a bit on the cel-shaded graphics side, and plays very smooth.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I like that. I didn't see any frame rate drops.
Yeah, it's very nice. My one gripe is if you fail the main mission objective, no matter what difficulty level you're playing on, you must start the entire level over again.
Oh yeah. Yeah, that's a pain.
Yeah. Now, if you die from like a side mission or doing something else, there's, I believe, one checkpoint system, one checkpoint in each level, and it's very random to where it is, because usually you'd associate a checkpoint system with like halfway through a level. That is not the case in Time Splitters 2. It could be anywhere in the level, a third or a fourth way through, 75% of the way through. It's very, very strange how that's...
And they're spaced really far apart, which I really
you could be coming up to a boss battle, and again you would think, oh, checkpoints right before a boss. Not in the case of Time Splitters 2.
Yeah.
Probably the most egregious example from what I experienced in Time Splitters 2 here was the Paris zombie mission.
Yeah.
where you have to. It's an escort mission, and the zombies just maul your little escort girls, and they have like no health. So as soon as one of them dies, mission over. Restart the whole level. So it kind of felt there was no checkpoint system at all in that one. And then the future world that reminded me a lot of Blade Runner was entirely a trailing mission. So as soon as you're spotted, start over again.
Yeah.
I didn't like this too.
That level takes place in the year 2019 in Neo Tokyo. I guess I missed it when I was there.
You were living Time Splitters too.
Yep.
And then one of my other favorite things I liked in the game, besides the difficulty change, was how the guns were tied to the levels. So if you were in the Old Western level, you had Old Western guns. If you were in the Chicago mob level, you had all mob type guns, like the Tommy guns.
Yeah, I like that.
So that was real cool. Now, some guns are better than others and more imaginative, but I kind of give it a little pass.
Yeah.
And I imagine since you rented this game or your friend had it, the multiplayer is ridiculously fun.
Absolutely. I think it's the same reason so many people love the multiplayer of GoldenEye. It's just so much replay value, and it's so much fun. And plus, as you progress through the story mode, you unlock different characters to play as in the multiplayer mode.
Incentive to play the single player and unlocking. Oh my god, what a thought.
Goodness gracious, what a concept.
Imagine if you were playing Red Dead Redemption 2. Okay, hear me out. And as you progress through the story and you meet like major characters in the game, you unlock those characters you could be in Red Dead Online.
Oh yeah.
Or they're activated in missions or their boss battles or whatever in that online mode. How cool would that be?
That would be super super cool. I could totally get into that.
You play the story, certain guns are unlocked in the game, certain horses you can get. As soon as you get them in the story, holy shit, you can get them in online. I mean, it'd be like your little trophy collection,
Yeah. And plus each
Incentive
character could possibly have different capabilities or stats. Like one guy could take more bullets than others, one guy moves faster than others, or something like that.
Yeah, make it a little hero shooter. So, Time Splitters 2, it really reminded me of another first-person shooter I really loved, and that's Red Faction 2, the Red Faction series.
How so?
At least from the multiplayer's perspective. I think Time Splitters 2 had a much better single-player experience.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah, it sounds like the first Time Splitters game didn't even have a plot, but this one does, because you're a couple of Marines or just a space Marine from the distant future in a war against aliens, the titular Time Splitters, who collect a bunch of time crystals and go back in time with them, and then you got to follow them and in the different time periods retrieve the time crystals.
Not the Chaos Emeralds.
No, they're all different colors. Or no, they're all the same color in this game. What's kind of cool about it is that every time the main character goes to a certain time period, his appearance changes. Like in Siberia, he'll change to resemble an Russian army guy, or in Chicago, he'll become a detective. Or in, I think, Notre Dame, you're some kind of ninja jester girl.
That makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah. What did you think of the weapons? Because I found the sniper rifle manual aim to be really, really difficult to work with.
Yeah, the weapons themselves, I love the concept of them all, how they were tied to the levels, as I said. I found them very much hit or miss a lot of the times in general, whether it was hard to really aim with, control. Your bullets would go away too quick. I think the ones I didn't like I think the ones I liked the least would be the ones in the future Blade Runner.
Oh yeah.
Area, because they I mean, I get what they were doing. It was kind of the Star Wars kind of laser guns deal.
Oh yeah.
But they felt like they had no impact in them. I was just kind of spamming a button and just hoping to kind of shoot them.
Mm.
While the Old West level, everything felt like it packed a punch.
Oh yeah. Yeah, it makes sense.
So that was interesting to experience. It was like, okay, I don't like this one. I won't ever use it, although it's more powerful, but it feels lame.
I liked using the timed mines. Like if you throw them onto an enemy, they'll run around all panicked until it detonates.
Sticky grenades or whatever. Those are always funny when you get character animations like that.
Yeah, and with the one combat shotgun, I like how if you have enough spare ammo, it actually shows up in the little spare ammo rack on top of the barrel.
Right.
But then when you're running low, they disappear. So I really like that attention to detail.
Yeah. There's a reason why this game got really good reviews when it came out. Game only goes for like $5 to $10 depending on what system you want to get it for. So it's very affordable. It gets an easy pass from me, which is... These are the kind of first-person shooter games I look for.
Oh yeah,
where they set themselves apart rather than your simple World War II shooter. So on this podcast, I've come to love a lot more first-person shooter games than I realized. Time Splitters 2, Medal of Honor on the PlayStation.
nice.
Those are two great examples. Halo, the first Halo was, I mean, that goes back to our very first episode. I mean, that was okay. I think if I was to compare Medal of Honor and Time Splitters 2 to Halo, even multiplayer-wise, edge goes to Time Splitters 2, man. This is a good game. Easy pass.
Yep, easy pass for me too. Although I had a couple of stupid deaths in the Siberia mission.
Yeah.
Because one complaint I have is that when you catch fire, there's no way to put it out. You just gotta wait until you burn to death.
Sounds about right.
And there are a bunch of burning zombies every now and again, so you gotta be really careful. And then another one was that I blew up one of the wooden crates, because that's how it works in rare shooters. You shoot a wooden crate enough times, it explodes. And then when it was still largely intact, I fired another shot into it just 'cause, and then it exploded a second time. How the fuck does that work? But yeah, easy pass for Time Splitters too.
For sure. All right. What is our next game for the theme as we move along?
Our next big behemoth, big powerhouse, is Chrono Trigger on the Super Nintendo, PlayStation, or DS.
Ooh. I have a confession to make.
Go ahead.
I have never played Chrono Trigger prior to this podcast.
Blasphemy! It's okay. I didn't really play it until recent years myself either.
It was one of my what do they call it? The your white whale games.
Oh yeah.
You just never played, always wanted to. Just played other things instead.
Yep.
But in the back of your mind, you're like, I must play it. I need it in my life.
Yeah. I know exactly what you mean.
Fuck me, Colin. Chrono. You know what? Before we get into this game, who made it? When was it released? You know the shtick.
Yeah. So
how much does it go for?
It was developed and published by Square and released on the Super Famicom in Japan on March 11th, 1995, and on the Super Nintendo in North America on August 11th, 1995. Then it was later ported to the PlayStation in Japan on November 2nd, 1999, and later in North America on June 29th, 2001. And then in 2008 and 9, it was ported to the Nintendo DS, which is the version I played.
Ah, so we both didn't play the Super Nintendo version. There's a good reason for that.
Because
I played the PlayStation version, which comes in the Final Fantasy Chronicles disc.
Oh.
Yeah.
Cool.
Because that version is $10. The DS port that you played is $30.
Uh-huh.
And the reason why we didn't play the Super Nintendo version, even though I have a Super Nintendo, is the game goes for $100 minimum.
Yeah. Yeah, it's pretty
Minimum.
crazy. Although the Japanese version in Japan goes for like maybe $20 American dollars.
Yeah. I'm sure this is a game that our boy Kevin probably has the Japanese cart, and then he throws it in his like Hyperkin 3000 and uses his SD card for translation little snatch, and boom, he's got a cheap Chrono Trigger, and it's the same game. It's not fair. Anyways, I played Final Fantasy Chronicles Chrono Trigger.
Oh, man. Yeah. So, I feel like this would be as good a time as any. Actually, no. Well, let's explain the plot first, and then I can get into that little story.
Yeah, setting and plot.
Yeah. So, takes place in a world similar to Earth, with eras such as the prehistoric age, in which primitive humans and dinosaurs share the Earth, Middle Ages, replete with knights, monsters, and magic, and the post-apocalyptic future, where destitute humans and sentient robots struggle to survive. And the game starts with our main character, Chrono, going to a festival where his childhood friend, Luca, is...
Mm-hmm.
She and her dad have invented a teleportation device. And along the way, Chrono runs into Marl, who is a very energetic girl who later turns out to be not all she appears. And then, thanks to a little... Well, she volunteers to be part of the teleportation machine demonstration. And then her little necklace reacts to the machine, and then which ends up ripping open a portal in time, and then she gets sent back to the past. And Chrono, being the heroic little guy that he is, decides to follow her and rescue her. And that's how it all begins. Along the way, you find out about an alien creature from the stars named Lavos, who brings about the apocalypse, and pretty much the whole game is our characters traveling through time to try and stop him.
It's quite the plot. Plot.
Now, there's a lot to say about the development of this game alone. It's like there's just like huge all-star lineup of developers for this. There's Hironobu Sakaguchi, creator of Final Fantasy.
Mm-hmm.
And Yuji Horii, creator of Dragon Quest. And finally, Akira Toriyama, creator of Dragon Ball, who did the art for this game. And it shows.
Oh, it shows very well.
Their team nickname was the Dream Team.
Yeah, not to mention the music was mostly by Yasunori Mitsuda.
Yeah, but he worked himself so hard he ended up needing to be hospitalized for stomach ulcers, so Nobuo Uematsu, the composer for Final Fantasy, took over for him and did the rest.
Yeah, but most of the composition was done by Mitsuda.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's a really good soundtrack.
God, the music alone is outstanding.
Yeah, I love it. I especially love the overworld music and the Middle Ages. That's my favorite track. It's just so good.
A lot of quality of life improvements to this game compared to, say, the Final Fantasy and Dragon Warrior / Quest series. You could definitely tell where the ideas combined.
Oh, yeah.
And wanting to create a different game. And what this led to was all of the positives taken from both those series, both of which I really enjoy. I love Dragon Quest. Dragon Quest V is my favorite RPG probably of all time now.
Oh, yeah.
And then the Final Fantasy series, which is very solid. The problem with Final Fantasy is always the story. The problem with Dragon Quest is always usually the gameplay.
Yeah. Well, I haven't played any Dragon Quest games, so I don't know about that.
Oh, that's right. You came in later. I recommend Dragon Quest V, Colin. Just saying. Discovered that on the podcast.
Yeah, but getting back to the music.
Don't get the new Dragon Quest, though. No, don't do that.
Oh, yeah. So, getting back to the music, I actually, since we're now talking about a Chrono game, this is as good a time as ever to say something I've been sitting on for literal months. Now, basically, a lot of you might be wondering, why do I love the Chrono Cross victory music so much? To the point that we have it as a drop. Well, it's not for the reasons you might think. Not by a long shot. And you know what that means? Another patented Colin life story!
Oh my god.
I had to. Anyway. Now, what's the big twist about this is that I've never even played Chrono Cross in my life. I mean, I have it in my possession, but it wasn't until recently. And this love for this music track goes back way back, like over a decade. Now, it has nothing to do with the game itself, and everything to do with a certain Flash series on Newgrounds that I came across around the time that Super Mario Bros. Z was coming out, which I showed you before, JD.
Yes, you did.
Yeah. Now, this Flash series was called TTA, which is short for TV Tome Adventures, by Kerbifer15. I discovered it when looking at the DeviantArt page of Alvin Earthworm, the creator of Super Mario Bros. Z, and he recommended it as he felt it was very underrated. And I feel like I'm going full hipster mode here by mentioning all this stuff. And as for TTA itself, it's a sprite animation series involving several characters in a dot hack style virtual reality MMO who get involved in a plot involving a virus, or two, or three, that can affect users in the real world. It's very anime tropey, but that combined with the earnest amateurishness somehow gives it its own charm. Of course, at least it hits the right notes for me personally, but anyway. And the series itself was inspired by the forum roleplay antics of the creator and various friends he made on tvtome.com, which is now called tv.com. And a lot of the characters share the usernames of these people. Anyway, the reason I bring this up is because in the game in which the series takes place, the battles take place on a 1v1 turn-based grid system, and whenever a fight would end, the Chrono Cross victory theme would play, and the first time I heard it, I fell in love with it. However, I had no idea what it was from, and for years it drove me crazy trying to figure it out. Best I could manage whenever I wanted to listen to it was just pull up an episode of TTA where it sounded off early, and then just listen to it there. But then a number of years later, when I played Chrono Trigger on my DS, I heard that victory theme, and it was really similar to the Chrono Cross theme, so I pulled that up on YouTube and breathed a sigh of relief and satisfaction. I finally found it. Go me! Anyway, tangent over.
Alrighty. So, now for a different tangent.
Okay.
Even though I love this game considerably,
Yes.
I love the concept of using and going back to the 7 eras to affect time and objectives accordingly. Very unique idea. Great use of time travel. You know, you learn information, you're talking to like someone's grandma, but it's actually her referencing her own past. You go do something in the past, and then that will affect kind of her dreams of the future, and really, really simplistic little things. Everything's hinted very well, not convoluted or very cryptic like a lot of Final Fantasy games tend to do at times. Or just games in general. Sekiro had one like at the start of the game, and I'll tell you this, Colin, right now.
Yes.
Dude says go through the graveyard. He doesn't mean the fucking graveyard. He means dive under the water, under a bridge, and then grapple onto a tree branch, and then it goes into a cave. That is not a graveyard. So there's no shit like that in Chrono Trigger. Chrono Trigger knows better. Chrono Trigger's a much better game. And even though I like Sekiro, Chrono Trigger is amazing.
Yeah, I like how straightforward it is. And it doesn't bog itself down with any unnecessary complexity.
Yeah, what's another game that does that?
Yes.
Dragon Quest V.
Nah.
An RPG I adore.
Cool.
Everything's very straightforward. Everything makes sense. Everything points you in the right direction. Great stuff. In this case, in Chrono Trigger's case, it's the right era that you need to go to.
Yeah.
Amazing. And the battle system is so intuitive. You just it has the menu system that Final Fantasy loves to use, right? But it's all action oriented and not random battle oriented.
Yeah. You can actually see the enemies before you fight them.
Yeah, very nice. Now, the big negative of playing the PlayStation version is it has fairly long load screens.
Oh, wow.
And I knew of this going into it, and I was mentally prepared. Well, what I wasn't aware of is how these load screens affect your flow. So, if I'm playing Final Fantasy VIII or Xenoblade or something, right?
Yeah.
The game's load screens flow very well. It's always after certain bigger events. Everything's kind of snapped to each other accordingly. So you can pause. The pause menu doesn't take a lot. That was all thought out. The PlayStation version very much suffered for these load screens, and you have the battle screen load, okay, and the pause menu load.
Oh man.
So I found myself very hesitant to open the pause menu at any point in time because it takes 5 to 7 seconds to load the pause menu or go into battles.
Oh, jeez. That's bad.
Keep that in mind, people, when you play the game. If that's not a big deal to you, if you go into it mentally prepared that there's long loading screens like that, and you might be thinking 5 to 7 seconds isn't long, it kind of is when you when you start going like, oh, I want to change this before I go into battle. 1, 2, 3, 4. All right, there it is. Okay. Do. Unpause. Luckily, the unpause isn't 5 to 7 seconds. But let's say you then go straight into a battle after that. You're looking at a good 20, 30 seconds just trying to fiddle with something just to get into the next battle, right?
Yeah.
It does wear on you. However, this game is so damn good. Honestly, once I got used to it, and I got in that right mental state of just going, yeah, it's going to take a little while, whatever. The game doesn't suffer from it, which is very nice.
You should play the DS version. There's no loading screens quite like that.
No, and I wouldn't imagine there would be. It's on a cartridge.
Yeah. Yeah, one quirk I realized of this game is that when you go back as far as the Stone Age and meet Ayla, you realize this game has the same contrivance that Doctor Who and Star Trek have, in that all ages and all planets in the universe, everyone speaks English. Though that doesn't bother me too much, since setting up some kind of translation technology or magic in these games would kind of slow down the story unnecessarily.
Sure. It's let's just assume it's like Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy and they have a fish in their ear that automatically translates everything.
Yeah. Works for me. Yeah. I just like everything about this game. It's got a really good pace, really good visuals, really good music. And the combat, I love how with this system you can actually do like combo attacks with the other characters.
Yes.
It's just so much fun doing that. Like one thing that you can do is with Luca, who has fire magic, she and Chrono can start spinning his sword, or rather Luca can cast a fire spell onto his sword and then he can do like a cyclone attack that attacks all the enemies. I find stuff like that really cool. It's just like unique attacks with different characters.
Yeah, and seeing it happen kind of in real time. I guess Beyond Oasis kind of did something like that, but on a singular character base.
Ah, yeah.
Yeah, I think it's just the action style of it all. What's really cool, which I will give the PlayStation version credit for, is the whole intro sequence is a full anime intro with all the characters. Instead of a text-based screen and showing the land and everything. No, this is full action-oriented anime.
Yeah, I think the DS had the same thing.
Yeah. So
in fact, it has
really
a whole
cool.
bunch of different like animated cutscenes, like full hand-drawn anime. I think that's really cool.
Yeah, it's almost like Dragon Ball characters on my...
Yeah. I like how Chrono, he's a silent protagonist, but he conveys so much personality in the cutscenes. Even as like a pixelated sprite.
Silent protagonists, it's where it's at.
Oh yeah.
Keep them quiet. Keep them quiet or give them so much character work that the story doesn't get, or the story... Like, the new God of War is a good example of that. The story is fairly simplistic, but the character work is so spot on, and the world around it makes everything. That's the difference there. And Chrono Trigger embodies a lot of that. You got the world, you got the story makes sense, and the gameplay is super fun and intuitive.
Yeah.
Easy pass.
And I
Easy pass. Like, holy shit pass.
And I like that the story doesn't bog itself down with any stupid love triangle between Luca, Chrono, and Marl.
Yeah,
and
it doesn't fuck around.
Sure, Luca's the childhood friend, but we don't get any indication that she's jealous of Chrono and Marl. At least that I can remember. Before the end, I just want to point out, I found one particularly disturbing moment of the game. Of course, it was intentionally disturbing. Mm-hmm. There's like a side quest where you go back in time to Luca's childhood, and you see a point in time where Luca's just like this little kid, and her mom is messing around with one of the dad's machines, but then her dress gets caught in it, and then she's being dragged on a conveyor belt closer to like the main processing part of the machine, and she's like yelling to younger Luca, "Shut it off!" And then there's a note that says the shut off code is my wife's name, and unless you know to use like the shoulder buttons and the like A button, because her name is Lara, you go like LARA to shut off the machine, you won't be able to save her. And then once the mom reaches the critical part of the machine, screen goes black, and then you hear an 8-bit scream. It's like, that was so chilling to me the first time I saw it. I mean,
Game's got balls. Game's got balls.
I mean, she doesn't die, but she does lose her legs, which is still pretty bad.
Yeah, it's fucked up.
Like, it gives a nice little moment with Robo offering to give up his legs for Luca's mom, saying he can make do with some treads.
Right.
Because Robo is like this robot character you find in like the post-apocalyptic future. And then he and Luca form a friendship because, hey, Luca's a machine geek.
Well, of course she is.
Yeah. But yeah, just like you, JD, easy pass. I love this game.
I wish we had more time so I could finish the game. But hey, it's a long RPG. I was able to play what I wanted before moving on to life stuff.
Yeah, and although as RPGs go, it's really not too long, or at least not overwhelmingly so. I mean, the first time I played it, I was able to beat it in like 30 hours, I think.
Yeah, I mean, Red Dead Redemption 2 is longer, so...
Yeah.
There you go. All right. So, on to the last 4 games. Much simpler to talk about, for sure.
Yeah.
So here we go. My first pick is The Lost Vikings, a game I've been dying to get on the podcast. Dying, Colin. Oh, and by the way, the Super Nintendo... Yeah, Super Nintendo Chrono Cross, $100+. Save your money.
Yeah, just get the DS version.
Yeah. So Lost Vikings came out on the Sega Genesis, Super Nintendo. Genesis version goes for $10. The SNES version goes for $23. Developed by Silicon and Synapse, which is now Blizzard Entertainment.
Ooh.
Yeah. Published by Interplay Entertainment, the creators of the Fallout series and the Baldur's Gate series. So, solid backgrounds, I would say.
Oh, for sure.
Released April 93. This is a puzzle platformer game. I really thought about putting this game on our puzzle theme episode.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I
really thought about it. So there is a plot here. Your 3 Vikings, Eric the Swift, Balog the Fierce, and Olaf the Stout.
Sounds like Asterix.
Yeah, it really is. Yeah, definitely see that. So, get kidnapped by Tomater, Emperor of the alien Croutonian Empire. Is confused already? Yeah, okay. Yeah. For an intergalactic zoo. They are able to escape the ship, but get lost in various periods of time. They must traverse the various bizarre locations, and eventually confront and defeat Tomater. I'm pronouncing it that way on purpose. To find their way home. And apparently these same characters are famous for their cameo NPCs in the Warcraft series.
That's funny.
There is a password system in place for the game. Quite nice, because I had to go back multiple times. The game has a Three Stooges vibe to it with 3 characters.
Yeah, I love how these guys interact with each other. It's really
very
funny.
Goofy.
Yeah.
Now, as for the game itself, I found it quite simple and addictive. You have the shield guy, your sword guy, and your jump guy. And every level has the objective to use these 3 characters and what they do to traverse to the end accordingly, right? So generally, you would go out first with the shield dude. Your sword guy is the only one who can attack, and then sometimes the level will require you to jump in areas and get items, etc., etc. And the whole game is like that. And so, what do you think, Colin?
I really liked this one. I mean, all the characters interact really well, and each one is essential in some capacity. I mean, the shield guy, he's important for blocking against projectiles that are preventing passage through certain areas, and the jumping guy, well, he's the only one who can jump, so he's the only one who can reach certain areas to activate buttons or get keys. And the third guy, he's the main attacker. He can fire arrows and slash a sword, so he can clear out enemies along the way. And plus, sometimes he's the only one who can activate certain buttons by hitting it with a bow and arrow.
Right.
Yeah, so they're all essential to progression. It's it's a bit like a 2D Sweet Home in that each character is essential for...
Yeah, that's an interesting comparison. This game is definitely much easier, though.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think it kind of suffered from that.
Yeah. Yeah, you got fewer characters this time around, and there's no turn-based combat.
Right. So, you can actually get this game for free via Blizzard's site. You can just download it onto your computer.
Cool. Yep. Nice.
And that's how I played it, really. I played it via that, and it's the Genesis version, I believe.
Yeah, I played that one too.
Yeah. And there's not much else to say. I mean, you're just the three characters. It's goofy. The puzzles are, in my opinion, too simplistic, really. You just know what to do immediately. It's kind of like a puzzle Kirby game that you use three characters for. That's my comparison.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, fair enough. Although I like the music. It's very fun to listen to.
It was nice.
Yeah.
I give it a soft pass. Not much else to say about it.
I give it a solid pass myself.
Ooh, solid pass.
Yeah. Not up there with Time Splitters or Chrono Trigger, but a definite pass.
All right. Now, my second game, I don't remember why I decided this one. I think it was because it just stuck out to me as very unique.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm pretty sure no one's heard of it.
Yeah,
not many anyways.
I barely even see any YouTube videos of it.
No, that's for sure. So it's called Exile Into the Boundaries of Time. Now there is a PC Engine CD version of the game and a Sega Genesis version. Genesis version goes for about $30, so it's affordable. This game was more or less more European and Japanese than it getting to North America, and that's because of like who made it, which is definitely not Mattel. I forgot to put the developer down. But anyways, published by Gen Renovation Products and CD Working Designs for the TurboGrafx version. Released in 91, and this is actually a remake of a game called XZR2.
Oh, you said Zed. You're becoming a true Canadian.
I have to. I like it more. And what makes this game interesting, because I was reading up on this game.
Yes.
And it went through a weird kind of development and port cycle. And it's very mature for its time.
Oh,
so the Genesis version was pretty much censored, like hardcore, such as removing the burning village scene and lots of the naked ladies that you see in later parts of the game, which I got to actually, and it's weird sensory. Also, there's a lot of religious and drug-related content that was removed or changed accordingly. So think of like the One Piece dub, or the One Piece censor dub, where instead of Sanji smoking a cigarette, he has a lollipop. So it's stuff like that. You know, it just comes across like, come on, guys. This game, it reminds me a lot of the Phantasy Star series.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. So, and I wasn't really sure what to expect playing this game. I was just more interested in all the themes that the game had. And why was this game just not known? It doesn't seem known.
Yeah.
So the plot is, it depicts the further adventures of Sadler after the events of the previous game, the first one. Now living in the time of the Christian Crusades, Sadler makes an attempt to unite the world under one god and achieve world peace. And okay, it is a attempt at least for the greater good, but shit goes awry. Along the way, he performs a Masonic ritual.
Oh boy!
In an attempt to revive like this demonic demigod Mani. At least that's how I interpret it. In return, Mani slaughters all these Hindus and Buddhist deities.
Oh boy!
And then Sadler meets the head of the Knights Templar, whose name is like Hughes de Pons. I'm probably pronouncing that right because my French is horrid. At least pronunciation. Helps him search for the Holimax, which is a holy artifact. Sadler then travels to several different countries, including France, where one of the characters is kidnapped, India, Cambodia, and Japan. And there's time travel along the way, which makes no sense to what was happening, but it's religious. It's religiously toned too as such. So the time travel aspect just kind of happens, right? It doesn't make any sense, which really threw me off. And I played way more of this game than I probably should have.
Oh, yeah?
But I was just so fascinated and frustrated and determined because the overworld is very classic RPG of the time. You know, very Phantasy Star-like. You have your group. You know, they follow like Pokemon behind you kind of deal. You go talk to 1,000 NPCs. They tell you about world lore, constantly telling you about like religious just shit all the time. And then all of a sudden you go into levels. So whether it's you drop through like an oasis and you go into caves, and they all become like Zelda 2, where it's 2D action all of a sudden. It's really weird.
Yeah, really.
It becomes the side-scrolling action game, and it gets stupid hard.
Oh, yeah. I don't think I got past like the first level myself.
So the trick is, you can save anywhere at any time on the overworld map. Right?
Uh-huh.
So the trick is to take out all the enemies, go back to the top, save, and you kind of keep leveling up till you're strong enough to finally make it to the end level where there's bosses. And that's where you can like kind of have enough health, and you got to find the cheese way to beat them all the time. And then you just continue on your journey. So, there's this definitely fits with a theme of I'm very fascinated with the game more than I probably should be. And it, kind of like Dune, where there's this lore happening in front of you, and the game's not intricate in any way, but you get caught into a loop.
Oh yeah, makes sense.
So that's what happened to me. What did you experience now?
I had some flashbacks to Ys 1 and 2, at least as far as like the overworld stuff.
Okay. Yeah, that's my Phantasy Star reference for sure. Yeah, okay, we're on the same page there, Colin.
There's a little bit of NES Ninja Turtles too, in that I refer from going from a top-down perspective with stubby, simplistic sprites to a 2D side-scrolling perspective with more detailed sprites whenever you enter a dungeon.
Yep.
And of course, why is it that when you get to the dungeon sections, your party members don't even follow? I mean,
don't worry about that. That's
Did you ever figure out what the AC and AP gauges are for? They just keep going up and down like a heartbeat, but I can't figure out if they do anything or not.
So, as far as I could tell, that was like your strength of your swing.
Oh, yeah?
So, if you press the button in accordance with like the swing rhythm, then you would hit at full strength.
Oh, interesting.
Rather than if you spam the button, then you would keep hitting at the lowest strength. So the controls were more in-depth than you would initially think for a game like this, and as old.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't really have all that much to say aside from the big dragonflies in the first dungeon are assholes.
Oh, they're the worst! That's... Okay, so the enemies in this game are fucking horribly designed.
Yeah.
They wreck your shit so fast, and you have no health to combat against them.
Yeah, it's stupid. It's just...
If that was tweaked, this could be like... I'm going to throw out a hidden gem for this game.
Yeah.
Because if you can get good enough at the 2D side-scrolling sections, you would fucking love this game. You would adore it. It has probably one of the most mature stories I've come across in a long time.
Yeah,
but I just could not get good enough at the 2D side-scrolling sections. And those fucking flies can suck a dick.
Worst.
And it's almost like this graphic kind of death animation, too, where it looks like they're humping and injecting their fucking baby venom into you.
Really? Because when I played it on like the Genesis version, whenever you die, you just kind of flop to the ground and then a bit of blood comes out from under you.
Well, it's the animation of the bug. It keeps attacking you.
Oh yeah.
when you die. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe it was just my
must have missed it.
imagination.
I must have missed
My
it.
imagination's just filling in gaps where they aren't necessarily there. That's what it looked like to me.
Yeah, with everything you mentioned, it is a pretty ballsy game.
Yeah, it's definitely something I would say would be way ahead of its time. Very much more ambitious. I definitely see the merits to it all, but I think with the difficulty and how punishing it was in, a good half of the game, basically, in all the action parts, it's just too hard. I gotta fail this, even though I was very fascinated with it, and I played it quite a lot.
Yeah, I have to fail it too. I mean, I watched a bit further than I got on YouTube. The one video I could find, but it didn't look like it got any easier from there.
No, it just ramps up in difficulty with every level you go to. It's very difficult.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. All right. So, Colin, why don't you do Kevin's first pick, and then I'll do the last one.
Alrighty. If I can
Then we can
find it.
wrap this up.
Yeah. Let's see. Okay, first is Bugs Bunny Lost in Time on the PlayStation. It was developed by Behavior Interactive and published by Infogrames, which is an offset of Atari. And I remember them. I think they did Roller Coaster Tycoon, a game I love.
Yeah, they've also done a few, well, at least published a few other games that we've covered on the cast. So.
Yeah. And it was released on May 1999. And the plot is it stars Bugs Bunny from Looney Tunes, who finds and activates a time machine, mistaking it for a carrot juice dispenser.
As one does.
After taking a wrong turn at Albuquerque, as usual, because he was trying to get to Pismo Beach.
Love it.
Then he ends up in the land of nowhere, home to the sorcerer Merlin Monroe, who is an actual character who appeared in one skit at one point.
Yeah.
Where Bugs Bunny lights his thumb just by flicking it. And then Bugs finds out he's lost in time and needs to travel through 5 different time eras to collect clock symbols and golden carrots to allow him to return to the present.
It's a collect 'em up game.
Yay!
Everything trying to be Banjo and Spyro.
Pretty much. I mean, yeah, it's a pretty simple game. I mean, man, how long has it been since I've watched an actual Looney Tunes cartoon? It feels like at least a decade.
Oh my god, that was my show growing up. It was always Looney Tunes. Anything Looney Tunes.
Yeah, I
had to have in my life.
Yeah, me and my family loved it. Every afternoon after school, 5 o'clock, it was on, and we watched the shit out of it.
Scooby-Doo and Looney Tunes. Those were my 2 shows.
Oh yeah.
So this is what I wrote on the agenda. This was my collective thoughts on this game. You ready?
Okay.
So basically, it's a basic platformer that you go about basically to collect clocks about a level. There you go. Sound and visuals are fine for this. It gives you a nice little cartoon type vibe in game. Simple.
Yep, that pretty much sums it up. There's really not that much special about it aside from the Looney Tunes label.
Have you ever played what is it, SpongeBob and the Golden Spatula or something?
Nope.
Came out on like the GameCube or PS2. I think that's the right title.
Yeah, I haven't played a single SpongeBob game in my life.
There's also the Scooby-Doo game we played on the cast before. Not the mystery one on the Genesis. There was another one, I believe, on the PS2 or PlayStation that Kevin picked before. Very much in the same realm of this, but much more simplistic. This is much more simplistic. Yeah, I mean, you're just Bugs Bunny. The sound effects I found kind of bland and very one tone. The game's harmless. Like, if I had a 6-year-old or if I was, as I was, yeah, like this would be a game for that era of child.
Ah, yeah.
You know, that's still learning games. You know, this isn't hard. The objectives are very simple. The platforming's simple. Yeah.
No fall damage.
So that's.
I do kind of like that certain holes in the ground let you do the classic Bugs Bunny burrowing through the ground move. I mean, that's at least true to the cartoon.
Yeah.
Along with the falling anvils.
No problem there. Yeah, no problem with that. Yeah, it had its moments. The game has its moments. I just think it was missing. It was too less on the charm of Looney Tunes. There just wasn't enough of that.
Ah, yeah.
Like I never felt, for someone who loved Looney Tunes so much and still does, I just didn't get enough of that, whether it's nostalgia or that Looney Tunes feel. It just felt like a platformer that Bugs Bunny just happened to be in.
Ah, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have to give this one a fail.
Unfortunately, there's nothing inherently wrong in the game. There's just not enough of the game.
Yeah,
all right.
Ain't I a stinker? Ah,
yeah.
Bugs, when'd you get here?
So's the game. The last game we're going to talk about, as we're running a bit long now,
Okay.
or just in time, realistically, is Kevin's second pick, our last pick of the podcast of time travel. And this is Dreamin Davey on the NES. Oh, and Bugs Bunny Lost Time's $14. Too much, don't get it. Dreamin Davey is about $15 on the SNES. Developed by Sculptured Software, whom later was bought by Acclaim, and published by HAL Laboratory, the Kirby people.
Yeah, and Smash Bros.
Sure. Released in June 1992. The plot: a bully steals Davey's pencil because he's a kid in school, and he falls asleep like a kid that's taken too much Benadryl constantly. He dreams of traveling about time to different eras. That's more or less what happens. So there's your time travel element.
Uh-huh.
And, fuck, I didn't like this game.
No. I mean, it's not so much time travel as much as playing a bunch of kids' fantasies about various time periods.
It's time travel, to an extent.
Yeah. Middle Ages, Wild West, ancient Greece.
Funny enough, very much kind of the same time periods we experience in Bugs Bunny Lost in Time, Time Splitters 2. So you see a theme here with a lot of these time periods just overlapping in all these games. Yeah, medieval, Wild West, ancient Rome, you said it all. The difference here is those levels just seem to loop. And I think, I really think that's because it was on the NES, and it just only had a limited amount of space on the cartridge. So they found a way to loop the theme and levels for different objectives, which I wasn't totally against. I can kind of get behind that concept. I just don't think it was executed very well.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of a shame. I mean, the premise itself kind of lends itself to a lot of creative freedom, since the stages are created from a kid's imagination. But it doesn't really capitalize on it. It's just the same 3 stages.
Yeah.
Nothing in space, nothing inside a computer, being a pirate, treasure hunter.
Well, that was 92.
The possibilities are literally endless.
Not much computer, I don't think, was going on just yet. Well,
yeah,
not quite. Activated my Alexa by accident there. So right away, I got stuck on level 1, the very first screen, until I figured out that you had to press A and B at the same time to jump.
Yeah, that took me a bit to figure out too.
I was like, what the fuck is going on? I looked it up, and like the very first question was how you jump in this game. I was like, oh, okay, it's not just me. Because B does nothing and A attacks. I'm like, why wouldn't you just make it the B button? I just didn't get it.
Yeah, it's weird.
Yeah. And then I went about the level, you find an item, you go back, the objective, you might face a boss, not that hard, but then you get to level 3, which is Rome, first time you go there.
Yeah.
And I was not able to beat the big Cyclops dude.
Oh, yeah?
At all. So I looked it up later, and there's a weird, I don't know if it's a glitch or what it is, but it tells you, the game tells you basically need a shield, and it's somewhere, right? But the game does do that. You know, it's like, oh, go find this thing that you need along the level. That's how you'll beat it. And then I was like, where's this fucking shield? I'm killing everybody on the map. I'm hitting shit. Never found it. Right? Then I go to the big Cyclops dude and he just wrecks my house. Because I don't have a fucking shield.
Oh, jeez.
Right?
Yeah.
So I looked this shit up. And honestly, I wasn't into the game at all. It was way too punishing. Made no sense. I didn't like it. Well, it wasn't that punishing. But as it turns out, you end up fighting this one Roman warrior, right?
Uh-huh.
And you're not supposed to kill him. You, like, touch him. You just make your character go into him. So it's totally convoluted to what the game teaches you, where all these dudes are going to hurt you every time. Your health goes away really quick.
Oh, jeez.
And that's how you get the shield. I'm like, oh my fucking god, what? That's stupid. And then I had just no desire to continue playing the game. I just thought it was very primitive looking. It just wasn't all that fun. Everything that it did was either too simplistic or convoluted to each other. I didn't like it. It fails. What's your verdict, Colin? What'd you think?
Yeah, I have to feel it too. I mean, the gameplay is really not that interesting. I mean, enemies die in one hit once you get the sword in the Middle Ages, but but once you get to like the Wild West and you're using the whip, it really goes down in quality.
Does the whip do anything at all? Because I was hitting guys and like nothing seemed to happen.
Yeah, some guys went down in one hit, but a lot of them didn't.
Okay.
It's funny, I just watched the Mad Dog McCree playthrough on Game Grumps, so playing through the Wild West was kind of a trip. And, yeah, this game really isn't very interesting. It's not something I'll ever go back to. I have to fail it.
Yeah, too bad. Womp womp. Alright, so let's wrap this thing up. Our 6 games were Time Splitters 2 on the Xbox, PS2, GameCube, Chrono Trigger on the Super Nintendo, but get the other versions more because they're cheaper, The Lost Vikings, Genesis, Super Nintendo, Exile, Into the Boundaries of Time, Genesis or PC Engine CD, if you even have one of those, Bugs Bunny Lost in Time on the PlayStation, and Dreamin Davey on the NES. Favorite and least favorite. Go, Colin.
Favorite? Definitely Chrono Trigger, by far. I mean, it's just the most all-around great of all of these. Just amazing game.
I
think
that goes without saying. I
its
agree.
Place in game history. And as for least favorite, I think Dreamin Davey.
Yeah, Colin, we are in easy agreement on this one. Chrono Trigger is shit. It's like if I'm making a favorite RPG list or best RPG list, it goes on there. As for Dreamin Davey, waste of my time. Yeah. I at least could see the merits of Bugs Bunny Lost in Time, for example, but Dreamin Davey was an easy miss.
Definitely.
Alrighty. Well, if you want to join a community, we have partnered up with Retro Twitch, so head on over to RetroTwitch.com via Twitter. You can join their Discord. Very cool retro gaming community. A bunch of people have also gotten Ataris recently, so a lot to talk about there. And then definitely go check out the Anime Radicals, where it's an anime congruent podcasting site where a number of anime podcasts have come together to create their own little server community. And the Red Leaf Retrocast is a part of it. So definitely go check that out. They have timely reviews, some Gundam, some Shonen stuff. There you go. And with that, we'll see you next time, guys.
Bye now.